Our gospel lesson for today centers in on John the Baptist. He was a preacher of righteousness. He wanted Israel to repent, but his message was not the one-dimensional attack that we might have imagined. It was a challenging message that we still need even today. John the Baptist announced the coming of the Messiah. Of course, his announcement came 30 years after Christ had been born. But John's announcement is just as important as any of the others was. John's role was to prepare the way for his coming. How do we prepare for the coming of Christ? We prepare in 3 ways, according to John the Baptist here today. And they may be summarized up like this. If you have wealth, share it. If you are in a position of trust, honor it. And if you have power, don't abuse it. You didn't know that John the Baptist dealt with such contemporary themes, did you? But he did. So let's look at them individually this morning. If you have wealth, share it. The multitudes asked John, "What should we do?" John the Baptist answered, "Well, if you have 2 tunics or 2 coats, let him share with him who has none. And he who has food, let him do likewise." Christmas is a time of sharing. We exchange gifts with one another, but many will go even beyond that. We will drop money in all those Salvation Army kettles. We'll write checks to worthy community projects. And some will make an end-of-the-year contribution even to the church. Something about this season helps us see beyond ourselves to the needs of others. Of course, not everyone is able to give to others this year. In a stewardship drive, one of the members of that congregation sent their pastor the following letter. It said, "Dear Pastor, in reply to your request to send a check, I wish to inform you that the present condition of my bank account makes it almost impossible. My shattered financial condition is due to federal laws, state laws, county laws, corporate laws, mother-in-laws, brother-in-laws, and outlaws. Now, through these laws, I am compelled to pay a business tax, amusement tax, head tax, school tax, gas tax, light tax, water tax, sales tax, and even my brains are taxed. I'm required to get a business license, a dog license, not to even mention a marriage license. I'm also required to contribute to every organization that our society, with the genius of man, is capable of bringing to life. There's women's relief, unemployment relief, every hospital and charitable institution in the city, including the Red Cross, the Purple Cross, and the Double Cross. Now, for my own safety, I'm required to carry life insurance, property insurance, liability insurance, accident insurance, burglar insurance, business insurance, earthquake insurance, tornado insurance, unemployment insurance, and fire insurance. I am inspected, expected, respected, dejected, rejected, examined, re-examined, informed, reformed, summoned, fined, commanded, and compelled until I supply an inexhaustible supply of money for every known need, desire, hope of the human race. Simply because I refuse to donate something or other, I'm boycotted, talked about, lied about, held up, held down, and robbed until I'm tired. I can tell you honestly, had not the unexpected happened, I could not enclose this check. The wolf that comes to so many doors nowadays, well, it just had pups in my kitchen. And I sold them. Here's the money. Well, I guess we all feel like that at some time or another in our lives. The demands for money from every side, particularly during this season of huge. And yet the gift of Christmas is a gift that must be passed on in order to be enjoyed. Christ comes into our lives bringing unmerited love, and only the coldest hearts will refuse to let him in. And only the most selfish of spirits will not reach out then in generosity to others. Our enjoyment of Christmas will be proportional to the joy that we bring to others. If you have wealth, share it. Here's John's second prescription for preparing for his coming. If you are in a position of trust, honor it. Even the tax collectors came to John the Baptist to be baptized, and they also asked him, "Teacher, what shall we do?" John replied, "Collect no more than is appointed you." Now you know all about the tax collectors back in Jesus' day. They collected taxes on behalf of the Roman government. They were despised as collaborators with the Romans. They were also infamous in their lack of ethics. They would add all these extra fees to the amount that they collected. This generally made them quite prosperous. John does not tell them to give up their jobs. After all, somebody's got to do this dirty business. But what he does tell them is to exercise honesty in their work. They are in a position of trust. They need to honor that trust. Does it appear to you that honesty is a disappearing commodity in our day? It does for me. A woman reported about an experience that she had while she was in Japan. She was standing in a line there in the subway station, and she noticed this pile of money that was over there lying on the counter unattended. Others were in the area, they noticed it also. She watched with mounting anticipation and astonishment as each person left it right there on that counter. Finally, she said, "I was glad to see this woman walk over and pick it up." But she just took it then to someone else to ask if that person had left it there on the counter. And when she found out that they had not, she put the money back. My friends, how long do you think that money would have laid unclaimed here in our country? Not long. Something scary is happening to us. We have replaced absolute principles of conduct with moral relativism. As a result, more students are cheating on their school work, and more adults are cheating on their taxes. In an article sometime back titled "Ethics Without Virtue," it criticized the way ethics is being taught in the American colleges today. And it pointed out that students taking college ethics classes, they debate abortion, euthanasia, capital punishment, DNA research, the ethics of transplant surgery, while they learn almost nothing about private decency, honesty, personal responsibility, or honor. A colleague did not like what she had written in that article. The colleague told her that in her classroom, that she would continue to focus all of her attention on the issues of social justice or injustice, women's oppression, corruption in big business, transgressions of multinational corporations in third world countries. The colleague explained, if you're not going to have moral people until you have moral institutions. You're not going to have moral citizens without a moral government. And she made it very clear that the writer was wasting time. She was even doing harm by even promoting these personal virtues. Not awakening the social conscience of her students. And then at the end of the semester, that same colleague came into that writer's office, and she was carrying a whole stack of exams and looking really upset. "What's wrong?" she asked. And her colleague said, "They cheated on their social justice take-home finals. They plagiarized. More than half of the students in her ethics class had copied from secondary sources." "What are you going to do?" the writer asked. And her colleague gave her a big smile, and she said, "I'd like to borrow a copy of that article you wrote on ethics without virtue." A hard but important lesson to learn. We simply cannot have a society that is not built on honesty and trust. If you have a position of trust, whether it is in business or in government or church or within your own home, you need to honor it. That's the second way that we prepare for His coming, by living trustworthy lives of honesty. And here's the final way. If you have power, don't abuse it. Soldiers came to John the Baptist. They said, what shall we do?" John said, "Rob no one by violence or by false accusations." In other words, don't abuse power. Power is a frequently used word in our society today. And while males are on the defensive, white males are on the defensive. Why? Well, they've been seen as having power. They have power in government, power in business, power in the home. Women and minorities are seen as being powerless. It is an overgeneralization, of course, but it's also historically true. Did you know that women didn't even gain the right to vote in federal elections here in the United States until 1920? Did you know that they couldn't vote in Switzerland until 1971? In the 1960s, back in my time, most states wouldn't even let a woman sign for an apartment lease, obtain a credit rating, or apply for a loan unless her husband or a man relative agreed to share the responsibilities. At that time, many people believed that it was smart for women to act dumb. Some parents wouldn't even send their daughters to college. And according to a 1965 study, 51% of the men thought women were temperamentally unfit for any management positions. We're not talking about ancient history here. We're talking about the past couple of decades. And women and minorities are still at a disadvantage even today. Power is distributed in equity. But all of us at one time or another may be in a position of power and authority. A parent has power child. An employer has power over an employee. A teacher has power over his or her students. A pastor supposedly has power over the pulpit. And John says to each and every one of us, if you have power, do not abuse it. There is no better example of the tragic abuse of power than King Herod himself. The young Herod had been an exceptionally able ruler. He had erected palaces, fortresses, temples, aqueducts, cities, and the great new temple in Jerusalem. He had stimulated trade and commerce. He was so highly respected by Rome that he would actually go down in history as Herod the Great. But his life deteriorated into paranoia. He was continually writing to Rome for permission to execute one or two of his own sons for treason. Finally, even his friend Augustus admitted, I'd rather be Herod's pig than to be his son. Within the Christian community, Herod will always be remembered for his decree that all the male children within his kingdom shall be slain. This was his plan for eliminating a potential threat to his throne. It did not work, of course. The tiny baby who would become the King of Kings escaped. Herod did execute John the Baptist when John pointed out all of Herod's moral flaws. How could a man fall so far? Power does something to people. The abuse of power is a dreadful sin. Whether it's in the workplace or at home or any place else in all of society. And so how do we prepare for his coming? John the Baptist tells us very plainly, if you have wealth, share it. If you are in a position of trust, honor it. If you have power, don't abuse it. Follow the example of Christ. He had it all, but he gave it up because of his love.